Hello, I am live. Grateful to be alive today. Grateful that I am sane today. I'm able to walk. I'm able to read as well as I'm able to take care of myself. There is always numerous amount of things to be grateful for in any circumstances in any single day. But there is also um, mental catastrophization that goes on mm, with all the bad things, explosive thinking, which I'm experiencing a lot these days, and I am trying to remain emotionally detached from them. Anyways, I will start reading and I will try something new to make it more effective. Mm, I'm thinking about um, quite a few ideas to make it more effective. Initially, from today, I will read, then I will try to explain point by point from my own experience. I have a big whiteboard in the other room, so I might incorporate that too. And again, I have learned a lot amount of tools to take notes over last 2 and 3 years, like using mind maps or ways to take graphical notes, which I will try to implement because I'm a visual learner. As I keep always sharing that my working memory is very low and I perform very well through my subconscious mind. That's why I'm never good with deadlines or I have never done well in an exam reading before the exam day because um, two important things there had created trouble for me. One is mm, my poor or destructive coping mechanism with the stress and anxiety that comes with deadlines or a um, sh- time constraint situation. And secondly, because of low space in market memory, I kind of plummet. Like I fail to ground myself and I ain't giving up, which is a very repeated pattern of my life. All the exams, challenges, jobs, and these days I have been trying to take control of that. Sorry, um, I mean respond with that. Respond with new tools to this repeated emotional pattern that I keep exhibiting in my journey so far very frequently. Anyways, I will set my timer. Okay. My ability to bring a train of thought to a conclusion is impaired accordingly. At the highest speed, I can sustain on the hills about 40 minutes for a mile. I do not even try to think of anything else. In addition to the physical effort of moving my body rapidly along the path, a mental effort of self control is needed to resist the urge to slow down. Self control and deliberate thought apparently draw on the same limited budget of effort. For most of us, most of the time, the maintenance of a coherent train of thought and occasional engagement in effortful thinking also requires self control. Although I have not conducted a systematic survey, I suspect that frequent switching of tasks and speeded up mental work are not intrinsically pleasurable and that people avoid them well possible. This is how the law of least effort comes to be a law. Even in the absence of time pressure, maintaining a coherent train of thought requires discipline. An observer of the number of times I took an email or investigate the refrigerator during an hour of writing could when it reasonably infer an urge to escape and conclude that keeping at it requires more self-control than I can readily master. Fortunately, cognitive work is not always aversive, and people sometimes expend considerable effort for long periods of time without having to exert willpower. The psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, pronounced Csikszentmihalyi, I think I mistook with the pronunciation. It's a very difficult name. Has done more than anyone else to study the state of effortless attending. The name he proposed for it, flow, has become part of the language. People who experience flow describe it as a state of effortless concentration so deep that they lose their sense of time, of themselves, of their problems. And their descriptions of the joy of that state are so compelling that Sixen Mihai has called it an optimal experience. Many activities can induce a sense of flow, from painting to racing motorcycles, and for some fortunate authors I know, even writing a book is often an optimal experience. Flow neatly separates the two forms of effort concentration, on the other hand, task, and the deliberate control of attention. Riding a motorcycle at 150 miles an hour and playing a competitive game of chess are certainly very effortful. In a state of flow, however, maintaining focused attention on these absorbing activities requires no exertion of self control, thereby freeing resources to be directed to the task at hand. Resources, the busy and depleted system too. It is now a well established position that both self control and cognitive effort are forms of mental work. Several psychological studies have shown that people who are simultaneously challenged by a demanding cognitive task and by a temptation are more likely yield to the temptation. Imagine that you are asked to retain a list of 7 diseases for a minute or two. You are told that remembering the disease is your top priority while your attention is focused on the disease. You are offered a choice between two desserts, one, a sinful chocolate cake, and a virtuous fruit salad. The evidence suggests that you would be more likely to select the tempting chocolate cake when your mind is loaded with disease. System 1 has more influence on behavior when System 2 is busy, and it has a sweet tooth. People who are cognitively busy are also more likely to make selfish choices, use sexist language, and make superficial judgments in social situations. Memorizing and repeating digits loosens the hold of system to one behavior. But of course, cognitive load is not the only cause of weakened self-control. A few drinks have the same effect as does a sleepless night. The self-control of morning people is impaired at night. The reverse is true of night people. Too much concern about how well one is doing in a task sometimes disrupts performance by loading short term memory with pointless anxious thoughts. The conclusion is straightforward. Self control requires attention and effort. Another way of saying this is that controlling thoughts and behaviors is one of the tasks that System 2 performs. A series of surprising experiments by the psychologist Rob Bamister and his colleagues has shown conclusively that all variants of voluntary effort, cognitive, emotional, or physical, draw at least partly on a shared pool of mental energy. The experiments involve successive rather than simultaneous tasks. Bamister's group has repeatedly found that an effort of will or self control is tiring. If you have had to force yourself to do something, you are less willing or less able to exert self control. When the next challenge comes around, the phenomenon has been named ego depletion. In a uh, typical demonstration, participants were instructed to stifle their emotional reaction to an emotionally charged film, later performed poorly on a test of physical stamina. How long they can maintain a strong grip on a dynamometer in spite of increasing discomfort. The emotional effort in the first phase of the experiment reduces the ability to withstand the pain of sustained muscle contraction, and ego depleted people therefore succumb more quickly to the urge to quit. In another experiment, people are first depleted by a task in which they eat virtuous foods such as radishes and celery, while resisting the temptation to indulge in chocolate and rich cookies. Later, these people will give up earlier than normal when faced with a difficult cognitive task. The list of situations and tasks that are now known to deplete self control is long and varied. All involve conflict and the need to suppress a natural tendency. They include avoiding the thought of white beers, inhibiting the emotional response to a staring film, making a series of choices that involve conflict, trying to impress others, responding kindly to a partner's bad behavior, responding kindly to a partner's bad behavior, interacting with a person of a different race for prejudiced individuals. The list of indications of depletion is also highly diverse, deviating from someone's diet, overspending on impulsive purchases, reacting aggressively to provocation, persisting less time in a hand grip task, performing poorly in cognitive tasks, and logical decision making. The evidence is persuasive. Activities that impose high demands on system 2 require self-control, and the exertion of self-control is depleting and unpleasant. Unlike cognitive load, ego depletion is at least in a part of loss of motivation. After exerting self-control in one task, you do not feel like making an effort in another, although you could do if you really had to. In several experiments, people are able to resist the effects of ego depletion when given a strong incentive to do so. In contrast, increasing effort is not an option when you must keep six digits in a short-term memory while performing a task. Ego depletion is not the same mental state as cognitive busyness. The most surprising discovery made by Bamister's group shows, as he puts it, that the idea of mental energy is more than a mere metaphor. The nervous system consumes more glucose than most other parts of the body, and effortful mental activity appears to be especially expensive in the currency of glucose. When you are actively involved in difficult cognitive zone, mm, in engaged in a task that requires self control, your blood glucose level drops. The effect is analogous to a runner who analogous to a runner. Ding 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 ding. touch screen is not working. This device is sometimes stop working. Ah, my book, my digital book. And I put a marker. Yay, found it. So today I have read mostly about quite a few important topics that Kahneman is trying to bring. One is whenever trying to concentrate and focus on a task, our self control or machinery of control to manage the garbage thoughts, or I would say all the other thoughts that are arising in our minds. And there are two important things from my own experience I have learned in the last few years that can we stop thoughts to arise in our minds? No, it's impossible to arise those. But we can minimize the triggers. Like my mind kind of creates a lot of assumptions about a certain scenario. Like I have seen a people in the street, my mind will cook some automatic assumption there, like try to put a story. But these days I am trying to be in the present rather than putting a story, like a story of um, delusion or that is not truth, and be remain on the side of truthfulness. So the thing is that, like, as I have already shared, that even another Kahneman study found that as a human being we love to create stories. We are all storytellers inside our minds. These dogs are becoming good friends of mine. They're recognizing my reading. Anyways, I need to find a different time. Probably 5 a.m. I wake up every day at 3 a.m. someday to attend a meeting. So probably I will do that. Anyways, mm, so the idea that this reading brought in that we have limited budget of control. That means mm, uh, when we are calling our mind that keep this 5-digit number inside your memory, we are also controlling it to manage the thoughts or emotional triggers. So not always it is possible to manage that coherent rate of thought, which I'm experience almost every day. Sometimes I experience very explosive thoughts, which are completely irrelevant and corrupted by emotion. And mm, even I verbalize them, and these days I am trying not to verbalize them. And like at one point, I was thinking that if I can divert the uncomfortable emotion to make myself feel that way, I'll be in a better state using whatever tools I have, like breathing practices, working out, journaling, or the numbing out the emotion with external sources like food or mm whatever ways I could find. Then I realized that I was doing it wrong. Mm, I have to feel the emotion fully to restore my wholeness later. Because if I selectively numb a specific emotion because of like the urge to because of urge to avoid the discomfort that will come with the feeling, I might not be able to um, experience pleasant emotions fully. Um, I can remember a quote by Golda Meir, probably, I forgot, but it says something like those who cannot cry with whole heart, they cannot be fully happy. And like understanding the balance between emotions and um, even it is logically impossible, it's a logical fallacy. So anyways, Kahneman talks about that uh, the idea of flow as well as the effort requires to maintain the coherent thread of thought in terms of achieving any goals or dreams or anything. Like um, when I was working out or when I was blogging, when I'm doing anything in my day-to-day life, I am having constantly negative thoughts in my mind, like take rest, give up, what's the point in doing that? But at the same moment, my rational mind is kind of controlling those urges and taking control again. And this is serious work. Like it requires a lot amount of budget of attention or self-control. And Kahneman brings the idea of flow, like psychologist Csikszentmihalyi talks about. Flow is the idea of being at one piece. Like um, at one point of my life, I used to think like I have to do something extreme with my life, like walking. I did this 50 kilometers, I think 60-kilometer long walk back in 2018 or 19. I was emotionally traveled a lot in that time. So when I feel emotionally traveled, I feel that if I um, hurt myself physically, that emotional pain might get reduced. And this has worked, but this has also increased huge amount of self-harming tendencies and like beating myself with a hammer or whatever, like and notorious tools I can find. Anyways, flow, I used to consider that flow is for like elite athletes, artists, dancers, or people who are really good at something. Flow is not for ordinary people or normal human beings like us. But then, after reading Kahneman, I have realized flow is the experience that we receive doing anything. Like even sometimes I experience flow um, while cleaning my apartment, but doesn't mean that I need to be a professional cleaner, because I'm doing it for myself and I am feeling in a flow in that state. I there is a and there is like not anything specific that you can be passionate for or in a flow that can be a huge amount of things that gives you the experience, the optimal experience of flow. Like mm, for me, writing gives me that, riding bicycle gives me that, or like when I was volunteering for a lot of organizations, it used to give me that flow. Like I was not there. Yes, a part of me was there for like being insignificant, or because of my deep-rooted insecurities that I need to be seen, heard, and understood, because I never felt seen, understood, and heard being an ordinary person. But then I realized later, I mean, I'm already seen, understood, and heard by my immediate family, espe- especially my biological family, always. But I am not recognizing it and I'm not validating it. So that's why I'm looking for these things outside, like, I mean, going into a stage or something like that. Anyways, also Kahneman talks about like people who are too much cognitively busy. They're mostly likely to think about themselves. They will always come up with the phrase, "I don't care about others or anything," because they're mostly focused on the goal to achieve things for themselves. Even I am also that human being. Like I'm not talking about that something outside myself is wrong. I'm practicing dualism these days, and one of the fundamental teaching of dualism is that if there is something outer than me is wrong, there is an existence of that wrong within me too. Like um, if someone is selfish, I am also selfish. So like it's a part of the common human traits and I also exhibit them, like um, recognizing the common humanity in all affairs and understand that I am also a contributor to that. Like I was having huge amount of intrusive thoughts about my electricity bills. Like I was in home last month, and despite I had a huge bill, I was thinking like those thoughts were coming up that maybe I should talk with whatever people why my bill is too much high. But yesterday I received this month's reading, and the reading was like okay. It was not like any way um, tempered. So I didn't do anything induced by those intrusive thoughts, because if I had asked to clarify that, that would destroy my relationship or like bring a heuristic of suspicion. Um, Kahneman brings about the idea of heuristic questions and as well as like direct questions. I love to communicate directly and openly, but like if I am considering someone else as a suspicion, or like as a corrupt person, I would come up with suspicion, or like scenarios that will make me question that person's every motives. So I will conclude with that, and hopefully I will come back tomorrow if like I remain alive and citrus believers.